Mathison Architecture and Design firm here in Grand Rapids, actually right around the corner on the west side.
My name is Scott with New Urban Home Builders. We're a boutique firm. There's three of us in our organization, and we focus on luxury homes and large scale renovation in the West Michigan and Wilshire areas. Thank you for coming, and thanks for the HBA for having us all here.
Yeah, big thanks to the HBA for letting us come up here and be able to speak to everybody, and also to Showspan for this opportunity as well. So thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming. If we're not loud enough during the presentation, just let us know. We'll try to speak up. Are we good with the volume? So we're going to talk about a few things today. The first is kind of design trends, what we're seeing right now. And part of that sort of umbrella, we're going to be talking about this great architectural fabric, the great buildings that we have from 100 years ago here in Grand Rapids. We have such a rich architectural history for homes here in Grand Rapids. We want to touch a little bit on that. We want to talk about the importance of team building, building a great team for your project or your renovation or your new build. So that would mean architect, builder, interior designer, landscape designers or architects. How do you do that? Because that's usually one of the first questions we get. Oftentimes people come to a builder or an architect first. How do we start to put this team together? That's something that both of us do every day. Then we want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in our practices. We've done work together, so we're going to show you an example of that today, as well as some other projects. So everything you see today will be projects that my office or Scott's office has done or is currently working on. And then finally, we're going to talk about sustainability and how to make your home more green or more sustainable. So we want to talk a little bit about performance because that's certainly shaping the way that homes are being designed and built today.
So initially, we really want to talk about kind of the Grand Rapids and West Michigan area and the history of architecture here. And if you go through Heritage Hill and you go through some of the areas of Grand Rapids, we do have a rich history of very good design, very good construction, and that has held up over the years. And yes, there's been ups and downs through the decades on what's been popular and what's been not, but overall, if you look at that area, there's a huge demand for people wanting to live in those areas, and that's because of good architecture, good design. And that really, we're kind of a fortunate area in the country because we do have the good history of craftsmanship and of architectural design. And I think that's kind of rejuvenating and kind of coming back around today, and I think we're starting to see a resurgence of that again. And kind of lending itself to where design is heading over the next 5-10 years.
I think what's interesting is both of us have lived somewhere else. Scott lived in Austin, Texas for a while. I lived in Boston, Massachusetts. So both of those places have rich architectural history. And now that we're both back, we both were here before, had left, and now are back. There's certainly a really great presence of architecture for residential architecture here. As Scott mentioned, the Heritage Hill fabric, also mid-century modern design. So the East Town, East Grand Rapids, Ada, Cascade, Greater Grand Rapids, there's a lot of great modern projects, and that's certainly shaping one of the trends that we're seeing for kind of designing into the future. Some of these projects here that you're seeing on the screen are projects that both of us have done separately and together. Some mid-century projects. This one's in East Grand Rapids. Certainly what we learned from the older era of well-designed and well-planned homes like Heritage Hill and the homes from mid-century era of homes were all those projects had really great architects, they had really great builders, and there was a focus on a high level of craftsmanship. And really we're seeing those things coming together again today. A few years ago it became very, very popular. It was really growing that everybody was looking for a really well-coordinated team so their project went as smoothly as possible. And homes are becoming more and more custom. So those are the things that we think are shaping. So what we've learned from the past is those teams are very important. You have to have the right people as part of your design and construction team to have a successful project.
And keep in mind, in the historic homes, the architecture was fantastic, the scale, the proportions, and that's really what's withstood the test of time. And if you look at today, we live in a very different world than back in the 1920s. So the houses back then don't necessarily work functionally as they do today. And so that's why the architecture has lasted for those years, all those decades, but the way we use our homes today is very different. And so that's why you're starting to see a little bit different trends in the interiors and how they're laid out, being more open in a lot of cases, and then more of that interaction with the exterior and the outside world, and allowing us to have that interface between the inside and the outside.
And a lot of people will come to us looking for ways to make their older homes work better for their modern lifestyle. It's a very common problem for us to solve, is analyzing somebody's home. We have a detailed wish list process that we go through in our office, and then we translate that into design options. And what we do is and I'll show a little bit more about that later, but we usually give people options of different directions we can go with the design, and then we select and kind of massage the most relevant one, and that becomes the project. So it's really a process that strongly relies on the homeowner, how you live in the space, how you use it, and that's really what shapes the way that we move forward with a project.
Kind of lends it, leads back into what we talked about before, which is the team, and how crucial that is to the building a really good home, and where the project needs to go. And when you see a project that has a great team put together, and where the client brought in the architect and the interior designer, the builder, and the landscape architect up front, it ends up being one of the better projects that you can do, because everybody's involved from the beginning and everybody's on the same page through that process. So the team is extremely critical when you're looking at putting together a project and how that's all going to work for everybody. And it works really well, and it works a lot more efficiently.
This is an example of a project that Scott and I worked on together. It's in Kalamazoo. If you could go back one, Kevin, to the front. This is a very unique modern house in Kalamazoo. It didn't work very well for the current homeowner, the person who just bought it. They had a young family, had a baby on the way. Not a kid-friendly house at all. Lots of problems, bad insulation, structural issues. So we came in, did a full redesign and analysis. Essentially, we opened up much of it, and here's a good example. They had an indoor pool, which still functioned, but it was a pretty terrible use of space. They much would rather have a large great room space, so we transformed that. Scott filled in the pool. We put in a nice polished slab of concrete that's heated. It turned out really well. This is now sort of the core of the house. The pool was sort of in the center. The rest of the house moved around it. So now that becomes the main living space in the center of the house.
And again, it's taking that space and it's opening up to people to use today, whereas before it was a little bit more compartmentalized. And so now by opening it up, it allows them to utilize that space a lot better and a lot more functional for the family.
You can see the 70s influence in this house at the top. The trade ceilings, made the ceilings 7.5 feet or lower. The client's very tall. That didn't work for them. So we removed all those tray ceilings, did modern recessed lighting. It's actually pretty simple what we did, but the entire project feels different because of that. The kitchen was quite a transformation as well. Dark 70s. All the casework in this house was completely, the cabinets were completely custom, all made out of mahogany wood. We kept it in some areas strategically, but most of it went away because we wanted a much lighter palette of materials.
Again, we have decent bones. The overall architecture of the home is really good. And again, if you look at things that were done in the 1960s, single pane glass, not very good insulation, flat roofs. I think we got away from that as a society for decades, and now we're kind of getting back into that because now we have the technologies to make these function better. We have better windows, we have better roofing products, we have better insulation products. So there's more and more demand for going back to a lot of glass and a lot of interactions in the outdoors today, and that was reflected back then, but today it's more possible and it's more efficient to do it this today's market.
So we want to talk a little bit about design direction here in West Michigan. And what we're seeing is a resurgence of modern design. That's really been the common thread in many of our projects, especially the ones that we've worked on together. What we're seeing is homes that are smaller and smarter, meaning have more relevant technology, spaces that are flexible, and spaces that are sort of able to be transformed over time. Oftentimes you'll have a family that might have young kids. They're going to be there for 30 years, so they're going to grow up. It's going to change. The way that they use the home is going to change through the years. So we're finding more responsive architecture. We're also seeing a request for more clean lines. And when I say modern, sometimes that can be scary for some people. We're not talking about glass and steel modern. We're talking about warm modernism. So lots of natural materials, but very bright and full of natural light. I would say windows are becoming bigger and bigger portions of the budget. You know, maybe 15 years ago, a window package for a home might represent 5% of the overall cost of your house. Now it's between 10 and 20%. People are doing a lot more glass, so we do a lot of research on finding the right kind of glass, and also the placement of that glass is very important to making the space feel like it's bigger than it might be. That smaller and smarter is, I'd say, one of our biggest trends. So it's better to build less square feet at a higher level of quality, and that works really well for you and your family, than more square footage that costs more over time and is less utilized. So that is almost always applied to every one of our projects. I want to go through a couple here. This is a project here in West Michigan. It's just north of Grand Rapids. This was the existing house. It was a small cottage on a lake, 40-foot wide lot, very tight lot. So what we did was we developed 3 different schemes for them to choose from. So these are 3 different designs. And we do that in a very schematic way. We're just talking about hand sketches. We're talking about little quick study models. And go to the next one, Kevin. This one shows the study model in its context. So, you know, it's very tight with your neighbors. You only have about 12 feet or 14 feet between houses. So how that edge was defined was very important. So for this client, they do a lot of entertaining. They wanted to have great outdoor spaces on multiple levels. So the way this works is the center level is your main living space. It actually opens up with large doors to an outdoor kitchen and dining space. So in the summertime, the kitchen and dining actually doubles in space, doubles in size. So this is how it looks today. You can see this is that upper level deck we were talking about, and they have a whole lower deck with another kitchen. They have a lot of kitchens, but essentially they wanted to do a lot of entertaining at multiple age groups. So adults can be up high, kids can be down low, everybody can enjoy the lake in the same way.
What I think about, it's really important about this too is when you're in that house, it's the interaction that when you walk into that home, your focus is on the lake. It's not on the neighbor's houses. So you feel very much like you have your own private home on your street. And so it's kind of a nice look at how that works.
Go to the first interior shot. So when you walk in the home, you actually see straight through. You have a framed view of the lake. And on that wall, in between the upper deck and the kitchen and dining room, is a 16-foot glass door. So that opens up in the summer, and you double the width of the living space. So the space is actually quite compact. It's only 16 feet wide, about 42 feet long, and that's where they spend almost all of their time. But they wanted to spend more of their money having a space with really nice finishes, because they knew they were going to be spending most of their time at home there. And then the corridors upstairs, everything is flooded with natural light. All that glass, you see the windows up high by the wood ceiling, all that allows west light late in the day, so all those wood ceilings become brighter in the evening time. This is another example of a project with a well-coordinated team. We had a landscape architect that we brought in early, a great builder, in our office, and we developed a really amazing project for this specific client that had a piece of property on the ridge of a hill. The key issue for this project was all of the views were facing directly to the east, and the woods were very tall and dark to the west. So what we did was we wanted to bring in as much west light as we could. So all those arrows in the yellow represents natural light that we're bringing in through high clerestory windows on the west side of the house. So this is the building section. So you enter here, you have these flat roofs, and there's different layers of clerestory glass that allow the west light to come in late in the day. So that's the west view. And so what's beautiful about it is during the summertime, all that light filters through the trees, and you get these beautiful shadows with the trees through those windows. In the wintertime, you get full sun through those west windows. So this project, it follows the contours of the hill, and it's really embedded or folded into the landscape. This is something that we're seeing on a lot of our projects. What people really want are projects with great outdoor spaces as well as indoor spaces. And that boundary between indoor and outdoor is really being blurred. We're always trying to capture outdoor spaces as well as allow the outdoors to flow in. So in this project, we have a 40-foot wall of glass that opens up completely. You just see those columns. There's nothing in between the inside and outside. And then screens will come down from overhead.
I think in a couple of takeaways from this too is that it doesn't have to be this big house just kicking out of the ground anymore. It's more of, from a design trend standpoint, I mean, you're looking at getting these houses to really work in the environment and not feel like they don't belong there. They need to feel like they kind of fit on that lot so that it's a natural feel when you drive up to it. It's like, yeah, this belongs here. It doesn't feel like some big three-story blocks sticking out of the ground. And I think we're starting to see a lot of that now. And it's kind of a nice thing to see because it's making that house a lot more useful.
So this is another project that was a very simple plan. It's one big volume of space and then an entry that comes off at the top. Essentially, we used an existing foundation from the old house, which is the part underneath. We built a platform and then rotated the new top of the house 45 degrees, and that was really to get more sunlight and to have better views across a really dramatic landscape view. So for this project, just go back one to the plan. We had a need to really define exactly what all the materials were. This was for a pricing purpose, and also for the client, which was a multi-generational client. So you had two or three, actually really two main and a couple of separate sort of sub-clients, because all this extended family comes and uses this house. So we had to find a way to represent in a kind of a quick way what are the materials and what is this going to look like, the whole palette. So that's why we did this exercise. The outdoor materials, the indoor materials, and again, how the bottom of this house sort of folds out of the landscape, so it's a darker color, and then the upper part of the house, really we wanted to read like a floating volume over the edge of this hill. That's the entry approach with a landscape scheme. And then we don't want to just talk about new houses. We want to talk about renovations as well, because I would say a third or more than a third of our projects are renovations. So this is a mid-century home here in East Grand Rapids. Just finished that this year. It had that orange door is a mudroom that came into a very dysfunctional space with a bunch of steps that didn't make sense. They had little kids. They had lots of activities and gear. It was a mess all the time. Also in this corner of the house, they had an old maid's quarters, which was unused. So they actually wanted to remove that bedroom and give it back to the kitchen. So we basically renovated kind of this end of the house, about 800 square feet. So that's the after picture. So we basically took that band of glass and wrapped it all the way around. Now the kitchen occupies the corner, which has a great view of the park that they never had before. This was when you walked into the mudroom. A bunch of steps and some weird storage. Now it's much cleaner, more organized. The upper level is a corridor that walks to the back porch. and there's sort of this lower mudroom.
Again, with the remodeling, I think you're starting to see again how we live in our homes today and how it's changing. So you can have a home that was built in the 70s or 80s that we can go in and take walls out, move things around, and open up that space. We can put a lot more windows in it too, and still have the energy efficiency. In most cases, improved it, depending on how we approach it.
I mean, with this project, with a few beams and a few columns, we're able to get that kind of space and remove all these walls and support the existing ridge line. We didn't change the roof, we didn't change the shingles. That all is the same. This was really just an interiors reorganizing. Yeah, now the kitchen has this great view around the corner of the park across the street.
I think that's kind of another trend you're seeing too, is you don't have to have upper cabinets everywhere anymore. You can have more glass and have them more open. There's still plenty of storage spaces in a lot of these kitchens today, but now instead of standing in a dark kitchen looking out a little 1 foot by 1 foot window of your sink, you have a lot more glass, a lot more exposure to the outside and interaction with the outside. And you don't have to just stand there and look out this tiny window anymore. And we're starting to see a lot more of that from the trend standpoint.
So we want to talk for a few minutes about performance and technology. So this is really relating to sustainable design, sustainable construction. There's a lot of buzzwords out there, green and everything is, everybody talks about it. We like to look at sustainability in a few different ways. I would say we think about it sort of in a low-tech way. What are the ways that we can just organize the building plan and also orient the building itself on the site, and where you place windows? Those are very inexpensive things that you can do to increase the performance of your home long term. Everybody's going to buy windows, but where you put them is much more important of a decision. This project is showing basically on the green at the top is deciduous trees, the gray at the bottom is coniferous trees. So this house was oriented with this facade due south, and this is southwest. In the wintertime, all the leaves fall on those deciduous trees. You get full sun, and there's 500 square feet of glass on the south side of the building and 120 square feet of glass on the north side of the building. So what we do is we get a lot of free thermal energy. This is a classic passive solar design. That's low tech. It doesn't cost really anything to orient your building that way. So the building plan has a lot of deck space on the south side of the building. So that's the side that we want to occupy. You'll notice the building is very long and skinny. And that's really because in the wintertime, when that sun is coming in, we want the sun to come all the way to the back of the room. So we don't have any cold parts of the building. So everywhere you want to be, you have nice light and you have nice warmth. Just with.
I was going to say, and also to understand too, I mean, we also realize that everybody doesn't have a lot where they can orient a house in any direction they want. If you're in a neighborhood, you might have a certain orientation, but there are things you can do through trellises and through different ways of using windows, whether it's clear light or full picture windows, to achieve a lot of the same things without having to position the whole house weird on the lot that doesn't really fit that way. So there are a lot of different options you can look at. That's why it's important to have an architect brought in to kind of look at, okay, how does all this work, providing privacy as well as providing a lot of this natural lighting.
So I had talked a little bit about low-tech systems. So that's really thinking about the space passively, right? So now there's also active sustainable technology. This is an example of one of those. This is a SIPS panel home, structural insulated panel system. So it's basically 2 sheets of plywood and full foam in between. So the whole house is essentially foam walls. What that does is it cuts down on thermal transfer, so you don't get energy or cold sort of translating through the stud to the inside. There's no structure from inside to outside, so that helps us with our energy performance inside the home. It gives us kind of a warm blanket that we're wrapping the home with. If you could go back to the diagram, Kevin. This home had, there was a very strong, their main focus was really to build this as sustainably as they could. So this really shows a diagram of those systems and how they come together. And that's really what our role was trying to figure out how all these systems work together. There's a geothermal system, a horizontal ground loop in the yard out back. There's a radiant concrete slab, the SIPS panel walls, which are here. And there's blue foam, which is 2 inches of polystyrene foam around that. And then the roofs are simple shed roofs. We wanted to make sure to orient one of those roofs due south at a slope so we could put solar panels on it. And oftentimes, budgets don't allow for the solar panels today. But maybe in 3 years, we'll do the solar panels. So we want to plan ahead of time. Let's get a south-facing sloped roof and run a conduit, which is no money. And then later, you can put up the solar panel. Okay?
And as a builder, I mean, we're looking at the same pieces working with people like Evan, is you're wanting to plan for the future. And so you want to make sure you understand what these technologies are and how to put them together, whether it's from SIPS panels, through ICFs, which is the insulated concrete form, through prepping for solar panels, prepping for future home batteries. I mean, that's a big thing now. Tesla's getting into that market in a major way. And so we're going to start seeing more and more people putting big battery packs in their homes for backup as well as to run their lighting and some of their other functions in the house with, to not have as much demand on the electrical grid. So as a builder, we're starting to pay attention to that stuff and saying, okay, how do we make sure that we're working with everybody correctly to prep for these things and make sure that we have the right infrastructure in the home? And that's part of this energy efficiency piece, as well as just kind of future-proofing the house as much as possible.
You know, decisions like LED lighting throughout the house, those are decisions that are easy to make. They've become much more affordable in the last 5 years. So most of our projects all have LED lighting, recessed or otherwise, throughout the house. We like to integrate simple automation systems into homes. Not everybody has the budget to do a really fancy, fully automated home, but what's good to do and what's smart to do up front is to put in something very simple that's expandable. Because in 10 years, your needs are going to change. You're going to have different people using the house, different family members. You want to be able to expand that system and let the home adjust to your lifestyle with time. So getting those things planned out up front is important.
And then, I mean, looking at homes 5-10 years ago, we were doing these whole home automation systems, and they were $50,000 to $100,000 plus, and they were just getting ridiculously expensive. And not everybody, obviously, not everybody can afford those. And so, if you look at where things are heading today and in the future, it's basically putting in the infrastructure. So as a builder, I'm looking at, okay, what is the basic backbone of the house? And today, it's having a wireless router system throughout the house, plus a wired system as well, because you need the wired system for bandwidth and some other things for certain areas of the home, but you need to have both of those pieces in the home today as standard. Just when you move into your house, that's what you should have, so you can build on top of that. So one of the things that we're looking at is offering a basic system for a lot of these homes, and so if you're looking at these trends over the next 5 to 10 years, they're not these overly complex home-run wired big boxes in the basement systems anymore. They're more of these interactive pieces that you can pick and choose down the road as you want to expand your home. So basic things today might be like a video doorbell button. So when it comes to reach your doorbell button, it comes on your phone and it shows a picture of that person. You talk to them through that button. They're really inexpensive, but it's just a basic piece to it. You're starting to look at geofencing. And what geofencing is when you drive up to your home, your house will recognize your phone, and your phone has the software in it. And so once you get into 1,000 feet of your home, you can have it set up different things. So at night, the lights might turn on inside your home when you drive up to it. So there's these really basic things that don't cost a lot of money today, and you can set up a really basic backbone and system in your home for a couple $1,000, whether it's new construction or renovation. And then you can expand that system with security and your thermostats and your garage doors to know if your garage doors are open or closed without having to spend $50,000 or $100,000 on your home. And so you're starting to look at, okay, we're going to move in, we can only afford maybe $2,000 worth of things today, but as we over the next few years, we want to add more lighting control. We want to be able to tell Alexa, hey, turn on my fire lights. Alexa, make the lights 50% in this room. And And then you're starting to look at other technologies, such as you walk through your home and it has occupancy and occupancy sensors, as well as ambient light sensors, so that when you walk into the room, the lights will turn on, but they only turn on to a set point. And if it's sunny outside, the lights don't turn on as much. But if the clouds come over, it automatically picks up that ambient light and brings your lighting level inside the house so it matches that constant level. So there's a lot of really cool technologies out there that we're starting to integrate into the homes. And you don't have to call an integrator in for $250 an hour just to add this light because you want to put a Christmas tree on a circuit. These are a lot of things that you can just pick up your phone and or your iPad and do really easily on that, and then interface with Alexa or Google and say, hey Google, hey Google, raise the blind in the kitchen, and so your power blind will go up. And some of those things are a little expensive today, but as you look at over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be huge shifts in technology in homes, and we're just starting to see the very beginning of it this year and last year. And so I think looking at Apple, looking at Google, looking at Amazon, they're investing heavily in these markets, and so we're going to see more and more of this technology in homes, and it should be expected. I mean, we're in 2017. Tesla has self-driving cars today. We should have, when you walk into your house, that it does some things, some basic functions for you, and have that expectation. So, and it has to be easy. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things we've learned over the past 10 years. People don't care if they have a scene button. They never use it. They just want to turn a button on and the lights turn on what they want it to be. So you're going to see more AI getting involved in houses too over the next 5 to 10 years. But it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some growing pains, and we're all going to have to experiment and learn with it, but I think you integrate a lot of that technology with a lot of the energy efficiency pieces and a lot of the new products coming out, and you're starting to see that you don't have to spend $1 million to $2 million in the house. You can still do it in a cost-effective manner and still have some of these really cool technologies that used to cost a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, a lot of these images that you're seeing here are interior shots of homes that both of us have done. And what you'll notice is really well integrated systems. So lighting that's hid in balances, or curtain tracks that are part of a trim or a molding detail. And I think that sort of more dialed in interior details has really become a bigger part of our projects. People tend to want us to think about, well, I'm going to have more glass, so how are we going to be doing window privacy and window coverings? Let's think about it early, rather than getting it all built and then putting a curtain rod up. It's just people are wanting us to think about all those things in advance. And this image is a great example of really warm, modern materials, but also very clean. Simple lines, but kind of warm, rich woods and materials are really what we're seeing. Most of our work is starting to move toward.
And I think a lot of this kind of just up to everybody out here is, when you're looking at building or remodeling a home, you really want to get people that understand these things. You want to make sure that when you're interviewing them, that they they understand technology, they understand efficiency, they understand basic design and building science, and some of those pieces. You don't necessarily have to part all of that into your projects, but they need to have an understanding of that. And you guys don't have a Yelp to say, okay, who's a good builder, who's a good interior designer, who's a good architect. I mean, that doesn't really exist out there, and it's hard to do. So make sure you're talking to people and you're talking to professionals. Ask architects about builders, and ask builders about architects, and ask architects about interior designers. So I mean, it's just really asking a lot of questions, because you don't really, it's hard to have that tool. And that's one of the reasons we're part of the HBA as well, is because we want people to understand there's a lot of good professionals out there in this industry, and talk to the HBA and say, okay, do you guys recommend some people that we can talk to as well? I mean, I think that's an important piece, and I think that's one of the scarier pieces when you're looking at doing a project for a lot of people is, I don't know who to work with, because my friend had a nightmare story of somebody that walked off with their money and this and that. But there's a lot of really good people in West Michigan, and I think that's one of the reasons we love living and building and designing here, is because there are true craftsmen here. And there's not a lot of parts of the country that still have that. And so I think we're very fortunate to be here. And if you look at where things are going from a design standpoint, it's going to be exciting. I mean, there's a lot of diversity. We have a lot of people moving in from around the country right now, and so they're bringing their ideas to us and allowing us to be more progressive with architecture. You have the art museum downtown, and people either hate it or love it, but it's there in your face, and that's the whole point of it. It needs to kind of impart some emotion to you, and I think that's maybe through some of the decades we've lost some of that in design, we've lost some of that in construction, but we're seeing a resurgence of that. And it's great to see that we have that passion here in West Michigan for good design and for good construction, and that people appreciate the craftsmanship of the trades.
Thank you all for coming. There's some materials if you want to grab some more information about us up front. If anybody wants to talk more about higher level or in-depth sustainable technologies or contacts or information, you can talk to me, or you could also go to Brent Little at the Green Home Institute. His booth is right next door. We work with them a lot to find partners in terms of subcontractors and getting pricing on different ways to make our projects more sustainable. So again,
we are open to questions too if you guys have any questions.
But Scott's right. This is a great resource in the HBA. This is why we're lucky to be here. There's a lot of great subcontractors and builders and designers in West Michigan. And the HBA does a great job of putting all those together and helping provide resources for everybody. So thank you.
Does anybody have any questions real quick? Okay. Well, thanks for coming out. Appreciate everybody's time. I know it's 40 minutes. You guys did a great job. So thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.